For more on the crisis in Ukraine, CBS News national security correspondent David Martin now joins us from the Pentagon. David, great to see you. Happy Monday. Yeah, most of Russia's attempts to advance on Ukrainian cities remain stalled, according to a U.S. defense official. What else do we know about the Pentagon's intelligence assessment of how things are going?
Well, it's a combination of the skill of the Ukrainian resistance and the ineptitude of the Russian offensive. The Russians turn out just not to be very good at maneuver warfare, and Ukrainians are using all of their advantages, and they have some considerable advantages. For one, they know the terrain, literally, because it's their own backyard. And two, their intelligence is better because the entire population is serving as their eyes and ears. And they are able to move around without the knowledge of the Russians and spring ambushes on them, which the Russians make easier because they keep their armored columns out there on the road on the most predictable avenue of advance, sort of inviting to be hit. And the Ukrainians are making very good use of these anti-tank weapons that are being shipped into the country by the U.S. and other NATO allies, and also very good use of these Turkish drones. They still have dozens of these drones available for use, and the Russians really haven't figured out a good way to counter them yet.
At the same time, David, as this war unfolds, we have this specter of chemical weapons, as you know. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan issued a warning on Face the Nation should Russia deploy chemical weapons in Ukraine. And here's some of what he said.
All we can say is that there is an escalating level of rhetoric on the Russian side trying to accuse the Ukrainians and the United States of potentially using chemical or biological weapons. And that's a tell, Margaret. That's an indicator that, in fact, the Russians are getting ready to do it and try and pin the blame elsewhere. And nobody should fall for that. That is why we've gone out so decisively at the United Nations Security Council and elsewhere to rob the Russians of the capacity to pin this on anyone other than themselves. And as the president said on Friday, if in fact the Russians do use chemical weapons in Ukraine, they will pay a severe price.
David, what is Russia's record on using chemical weapons, and what kind of stockpiles do they have?
Well, believe it or not, in 2017, Russia declared that it had destroyed all of its Cold War stockpiles of chemical weapons, and that declaration was certified by the international organization which controls chemical weapons. But clearly, they have used chemical agents since. There have been two highly publicized assassination attempts against, one case, a Russian defector in London, and in the other case, a Russian dissident in his own country. So they clearly kept some stockpiles, and they have worked arm in arm with the Syrian regime in that civil war. And of course, the Syrian regime has not hesitated to use chemical weapons against the people it is opposing in that civil war. The thing to remember about chemical weapons is that if you use them, you also expose your own troops to them. So there's a risk in using chemical weapons that goes beyond the condemnation that it would bring from the rest of the world. Is sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And I think the kind of chemical agent that they're most worried about, the U.S. is most worried about, would be the release of an industrial agent like chlorine or ammonia, which is not as deadly as some of the poison gases like sarin, but still can sow widespread panic and would be really a weapon of terror.
David, one of the other developments from over the weekend is that U.S. officials claim Russia is asking China for military hardware to help in the Ukraine offensive. Curious what you're hearing about this, if there's any sense of what China specifically could provide them, and if even their two military technologies are compatible. Like, is this something that could realistically be done?
I think what Russia wants most from China is just financial support. They're in for a long, hard slog here, and they've got to conduct this war now under these conditions of these severe sanctions, which have cratered the value of the ruble. So I think first and foremost they are looking for financial support. The weapon systems are not that compatible. Russia tends to make its own stuff. It doesn't buy its military equipment from China. I am told they inquire specifically about drones because drone warfare is something they're getting beat at right now in Ukraine, because Ukraine is making good use of these Turkish drones, and the Russians haven't come up with an answer for it. But I think first and foremost, it's money.
David, the bulk of Western military aid funneled into Ukraine is arriving over land routes. What's the status of those supply lines? Are they still open right now? Are shipments still coming in?
They are. The Russians say they regard those supply routes as legitimate targets, and you certainly wouldn't be surprised if they attacked them. But right now they can't attack them because the way to attack a convoy going down the road is to go after it with aircraft. But Russian aircraft just cannot operate safely over Ukraine right now because Ukraine has enough surface-to-air missiles that it can make most of its country too dangerous for Russian aircraft to fly over. And in fact, the last big airstrike, which was that strike over the weekend just 10 miles from the Polish border, that was conducted by air-launched cruise missiles launched from Russian bombers, but the Russian bombers that launched those cruise missiles never left Russian airspace because it's just too dangerous for them to fly over Ukraine right now.
That's fascinating. Well, look, National Security Correspondent David Martin, we appreciate you for taking some time. Thank you.
Sure thing.